Hi, good afternoon, and welcome back to our live stream. And today we're continuing our podcast on the Idaho 4. Welcoming back my co-producer, Gia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And today we have divided this up into 4 segments here. We're going to be talking about court updates. We're going to talk a little bit about the demolition, and then we're going to move into some of the more current subjects that are being talked about here on YouTube regarding the Idaho 4. So we're going to begin by talking about court updates. So now I have 2 sound bites for you. The first one is going to be from Crime Time, and then the second one is going to be from Drunk Turkey. But I also have 3 documents that we're going to touch base on a little bit after we've listened to these. So let's go ahead, and we're going to start with our first video by Gunner. Oh, that is not it. There we go.
We're going to get into some true crime here for just a second. A couple different stories I want to talk about. First story I want to talk about is the Bryan Kohberger case. Bring back mandatory sentences, yes. First story I want to talk about right now is the Bryan Kohberger case. There has been new documents dropped on this case. Bryan Kohberger has motioned for permission to seal his stay and asked permission to appeal the interlocutory orders judge has shut down. So I didn't know what that word meant, so I looked it up. Interlocutory appeal, locutory, in the law of civil procedure in the United States occurs when a ruling by a trial court is appealed while other aspects of the case are still proceeding. Allowed under specific circumstances which are laid down by federal and separate state courts. An appeal is described as interlocutory when it is made before all claims are resolved as to all parties. For instance, if a lawsuit contains claims for breach of contract, fraud, interference, whatever, and if there are 3 defendants in the lawsuit, then all 3 claims are resolved as to the 3 defendants. Any appeal by any party will be considered interlocutory. So here's what I would think in terms of the Kohberger case, right? Remember all of Bryan Kohberger's King Road house gets torn down and all, yes. Remember all of the requests for discovery. I would think that would be a reason for Bryan Kohberger to essentially say, man, fuck this. Fuck this. We can't do this right now. To either dismiss this shit, put a stay on it, do something. Let's take a look at this real quick. Taking a look at the documents. Order sealing defendant's motion for interlocutory. There's got to be a reason also that Bryan Kohberger wants this sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Has to be. There has to be some sort of reason. The court having before the motion to seal defendant's motion for interlocutory and good cause appearing now, therefore. It is hereby ordered that the defendant's motion to reconsider orders denying motions to dismiss indictment and the alternative for permission to appeal from interlocutory orders and stay of proceedings filed with the court on December 21st shall be sealed. He wants that information sealed. I wonder what the fuck the deal was with that. I wonder why he wants the shit sealed. Now, one of the things we hadn't talked about over here is that the prosecution wants this to be a summer trial. They want to go to trial in summer. But if they still haven't handed over all the discovery, I don't understand how this could be. Kohberger, by and through his attorney, Ann Taylor, hereby moves the court for an order to seal the defendant's motion to reconsider orders denying motion. So basically, he's wanting the judge to reconsider dismissing the indictment, but he wants that information left private. He wants it sealed. I'm curious as to why Bryan Kohberger. Now, I don't understand how they can destroy a crime scene without a conviction or even trial beginning. You would think the crime scene would be the most important part of the goddamn trial. I'm confused as to why. I'm curious. Kohberger's and his demons are staying.
Okay, so we are going to get into speculation as to why BK is doing this. Let's just listen to somebody else give a little bit of a more precise evaluation of this. We're going to bring up the Drunk Turkey Show. And this clip that we're showing you is approximately 3 minutes. So, but we really want to have somebody break it down for us. And Drunk Turkey Show is actually, he is an ex-cop, so it is sometimes good to listen to his perspective on
the
these.
comment section. Let's break this down. So there was 3 documents that were dropped earlier today referencing the Bryan Kohberger case. The first one is order denying motion to dismiss indictment for inaccurate instructions to the grand jury. There's 13 pages of this. This is already kind of the stuff we've spoken about in the past. This is the procedural background and the analysis, talking about why Bryan Kohberger wanted to have this thrown out. And it was basically, the question was, of the law proposed to the courts, whether the standard of proof of grand juries to justify the indictment is probable cause or beyond reasonable doubt. A lot of what's in here is going to be just kind of the different cases that have gone through Idaho and referencing this specific type of argument. The next document is the order taking judicial notice of case admin. It says, in order for the court to access arguments in the defendant's motion to dismiss indictment on grounds for error in the grand jury instructions, or the alternative, remand for preliminary hearing and motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct in withholding exculpatory evidence, the court needed to have access to the grand jury procedures and evidence. To accommodate the need, the state submitted a motion to take judicial notice of the grand jury record without holding objection. The court has requested the state to take judicial notice under Rule 201C of the grand jury transcripts, the audio recording, the exhibits, the jury instructions, and the jury questionnaires contained in admin. There is a redacted word there. I'm assuming it's a name. The state provided the same information to the defense. And as you can see at the bottom, it is stamped redact. Now, here's the actual order. This is the state of Idaho plaintiff versus Bryan C. Kohberger defendant. Public ordering denying motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. On August 23rd, 2023, Kohberger filed a motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct and withholding exculpatory evidence. On September 14, 2023, the state filed an objection to the defendant's second motion to dismiss indictment. On September 20, 2023, Kohberger filed a reply to the state's objection. The hearing on the motion was held on October 26, 2023. Kohberger was represented by Ann Taylor, Jay Logsdon, and Elisa Massoff. The state was represented by William W. Thompson Jr., Ashley Jennings, Jeff Nye, and Ingrid Beatty. This hearing was closed to the public and the media cameras to protect the secrecy of the grand jury proceedings. The decision will be sealed. However, the results of the decision are addressed in this public order for the public's benefit. Kohberger has failed to successfully challenge the indictment on the grounds of juror bias, lack of sufficient admissible evidence, and the prosecutorial misconduct. Kohberger was indicted by an impartial grand jury who had sufficient admissible evidence to find probable cause to believe Kohberger committed the crimes alleged by the state. Further, the state did not engage in prosecutorial misconduct in presenting their case to the grand jury, dated signed 15th day of December 2023. Huge. This is huge for the state. Like I said, I didn't think that they were really in danger of having the case thrown out. Both of the arguments that they have, whether it's this one or the IGG utilization in this case, are futile arguments. We've gone through that before in the past. I recommend going through and checking out our other content. So I felt that there was really no worry when it came to this argument. And like I said, the IGG.
All right, I'm going to stop there. And before I move on to any documents, do you have any immediate reactions to either of the creators we just listened to, Gia?
Not necessarily to the creators, but to what they said, because it's very normal what they did, because you're always, of course, Bryan Kohberger's attorneys are going to do a motion to dismiss based on A, B, or C, because if they didn't, then it could go back on appeal that they didn't do what they should have, right? So they always have to make these motions to dismiss, even if we're all going, well, that's ridiculous. Of course, it's not going to get dismissed. And as Drunk Turkey said, he really had no worry that it would be, and either would I. But it was the right thing. It's like best practice. It's a course of action. It's what you do, right? And if they didn't do it, that could give Bryan Kohberger a reason for appeal and to say my defense, they didn't do the right thing. They didn't do right by me, and they should have done this and they should have done that. And they should, right? So they even knew probably we're going to ask for this to be dismissed based on, grand jury. They knew it wasn't going to be. It's kind of just a practical. It's just what you do. So these aren't surprising. I would be surprised if you didn't see these kind of motions.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that the process is working the way that it should.
Yeah.
That's what we all are hoping for, because there's been so much speculation in this whole trial.
Yeah.
I did have copies of the document, and when I was pulling up these two motions, I actually found one that I thought you all would want to maybe take a look at here. See, which is, can you see that, Gia? I can't. Can you see that document?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
What I thought was interesting is there was 3 documents that were filed in like the last 7 days. This was the first of them. And this is the scheduling for the motion for scheduling order. And I thought this was interesting. Nobody's really picked it apart, I feel like. And I just thought it'd be worth just reading what they're suggesting here. So what they're suggesting is a summer trial. And this is the description of what they'd like. Scheduling a jury trial to run for approximately 6 weeks, including penalty phase. The state proposes that the court scheduling trial for the summer of 2024, and that the trial dates avoid times when Moscow High School and the area universities are in session. As the court is aware, Moscow High School is directly adjacent to the court premises, and there are already a significantly increased amount of media and other vehicles that strain available parking, blah, blah, blah. So the court... So, and then they're requesting that the trial be scheduled from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So now we know kind of the hours they're going for, and that the trial length affords time for personal affairs, and then just a couple of other details. So the reason I'm bringing this up is it kind of gives us an idea of what we would see at a trial. We're looking at about 6 weeks. We're looking at 8:30 to 3 coverage. So it's something that people would coverage and you could come home from work and kind of get the highlights from. And what they're trying to avoid is they're looking for specifically summer hours break. This is a school town. And so I thought that was cool because it kind of, we finally we can see the end game a little bit. We can see what the picture painted is going to be. So
sort of. So this is a request for a scheduling order, right? So scheduling order just means at a scheduling order in any kind of trial, what that is it's where both parties come together in front of a judge or a magistrate. It doesn't necessarily have to be the judge that's going to preside over the trial. And this judge is saying, okay, we know we're going to trial. Let's define exactly what's going to happen all the way to a trial date, because prior to a trial date, there are other hearings that take place, right?
Okay.
So they're looking like how, and so the one you showed came from Kohberger, right? The motion for a scheduling order. Did that come
let me look. That's a great question. I try to avoid the top of these screens because they sometimes tell too much information than I want to show. Hold on. This State of Idaho plaintiff versus
okay, State of Idaho comes now. The State of Idaho. Okay, so the State of Idaho is requesting the scheduling conference, and what they're suggesting to the court is when this happens, to your point, we would like to see that it happen on a time where schools aren't in session, and here's why. So that kind of makes sense, right? We've got a lot of problems with parking. It's all housekeeping stuff. So a scheduling order is really, consider it like housekeeping, right? Like, so like for that reason, and we anticipate that it'll take about 6 weeks. And so the reason they say that is because they need to then get on the docket in a 6-week chunk. And so then whoever the clerk has to look and go, when is the docket cleared for a whole 6 weeks, right? And it might not. And they're saying, please try to do it during the summer, because if you don't, then you need to look out to the next summer, right? Because when our school's not in session for 6 weeks, only during the summer. So it either has to be this summer or the next summer based on their criteria, what they're asking. This is what the State of Idaho is saying. This would be best. So they're going to try to squeeze it in this summer. But it's also like, okay, all of you attorneys are on alert. Like, this is what we're asking for. and clear your calendars, make sure like you're clear during the summer. If you have other things that could be moved, maybe move it, right? So the emotion is seen as like the only way you can ask the court for anything. So it doesn't even mean anything other than I'm asking, and now that motion needs to be ruled on, and it will, and then we'll see, right? But it's likely it's going to look like this because this is what the state of Idaho is asking. That's why I asked. If it was Kohberger, maybe a different story, right? They might not consider it as much.
How long do you think it'll take before they answer that motion?
Motions usually have to be ruled on in a certain amount of time, so I could look into that, but I know like a lot of times it's like motions are ruled on within if they don't get ruled on within 30 days, then they get expedited to another place so I would say within 6 weeks.
Within
not
6 weeks. Okay, well, that's great. I mean, at least, again, it gives us some perspective on this.
Yeah.
So that
They're only ripe. Motions are only ripe for so long. So
back to stage. So that.
But it's interesting. You're right. It gives us a peek into what the state is anticipating. And the state's
the 21st.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. There's a little delay. I apologize.
No, I know. I do it to you all the time. The state's anticipating that the trial will be held this summer, and they're saying 6 weeks. My guess it'll be longer than 6 weeks.
Yeah, my guess too.
Yeah.
But so if it's the 21st, then I mean, you folks can think that we'll probably have an update or an answer to this at least by the second week of February. It sounds like. And just wanted to say hi to a few people. Jeff, Strange Suspicious, and Viv, thanks for joining us again. Gia, this is Pia, is the name of the creator from Strange Suspicious. That's right. She's saying friends. And so, Pia has a video premiering at 4:20 today. So make sure you check her channel out.
So she was saying she didn't know who I was. I'm Kiki's sister-in-law.
Yeah, sorry. Just skip over
the
question.
We just say sisters because we might as well be, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good name. Yeah. So, and then the next thing I want. So, did you have anything more in the motions, or did you want me to bring either of those documents up? Was there something else you wanted to explain?
No. Well, actually, the only other thing I did want to say about that is it makes complete sense. Of course, Bryan Kohberger is asking for everything to be sealed. So the reason so this spoke to saying, okay, we're granting the motion to seal it, but we will say that we're denying it, right? So we will say for transparency and for the public that the motion is denied. What Bryan Kohberger, when he made his motion, they put a lot of information in there as to why they wanted it to be sealed, right? That's why it's sealed. It's fine that it's denied, but it's like, and that makes sense because they've sealed everything under this case. And maybe they might have mentioned something in this motion that's already been sealed. So then that would make sense, right? Like that doesn't come out to the public. But the court was saying, in light of everything, you don't really need to know why they were asking, but it doesn't matter because it's denied.
That makes sense. And that makes sense too, because I mean, I couldn't quite think of the reason other than maybe something that he was using to dispute or make a motion against was also something he was going to be using for defense, and he didn't want to stigmatize it, saying that it wasn't worthy of dismissal or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and any information he might have put in there that he's speaking about, because everything's been sealed, that he's probably referring in that motion to something in a previous motion that's been sealed. So it's like, it makes sense that they would seal it. And they were like, yeah, granted, it's sealed. However, it's denied.
Well, thank you for breaking that down for us, Gia. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
We wanted to also talk about the demolition today. And believe it or not, there are some things that I haven't talked about regarding the demolition yet. And I heard something really interesting. I was doing live coverage today, and Cluminati, who's a creator, true crime creator, we featured her on this channel before. She actually called into T-Rev's live stream, and she gave a really interesting theory as to why this house is being demoed. She also brought up that there were 2 adjacent houses that were recently sold along with this one. And so let's just listen to what she has to say. It's not that long, and I'm going to cut it off right after she's done. And here we go. And if you want to see the whole live stream, I played it on my channel earlier. You can just go to my live stream. See. And right here. Oops, volume.
So you were talking about this yesterday, right? This like hurry for them to pull the house down.
Yeah,
And
this shit's weird.
I think it's money, right?
Mhm.
So if you notice, the 2 houses beside of it were sold 11/18 and 11/26. They were sold on the same day at the same time to the same person. And this business that they sold it to has 2 businesses registered at that address, and one of them is a development company.
Huh. Interesting.
And I'm not going to take all the time because I know how it is when people get on there and just talk forever. I'm not going to do that to you, T-Rev, I promise. But
You good.
the other interesting fact that I found really compelling is that Scott Green was at Sigma Chi
Jeff.
5 nights before the 13th.
With
Huh.
Jeff.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he was there for some kind of banquet or whatever. I don't
So that's
remember if it was like,
all. So that's all the Scott Green fuss that I've been seeing lately. Okay.
all I know is he was there with the Sigma Chi boys. Like there's a photo I have of him somewhere, and he's like, you can see Ethan in the background of the photo. He was taking a photo with all of them, but he was there on November 8th, and then this happened on the 13th. But in my opinion, I think they want to put some sort of like apartments or housing there. Because if you look at those 3 properties together, it's as big as the Queen Road apartment property.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. I just literally woke up and it's
She's
like
almost
it's
done.
pissing me off.
Yeah, no, it's gone too. The fact that it's gone is blowing my mind right now.
I know. Like I told fiance, I was like, when they get out there, I don't think people understand. Like it's going to be about 10 minutes and it'll just be rubble on the ground.
And
Like, I mean, it's crazy. I can't, like, I've never seen a situation where they do this, right? Like, you have someone in custody, leave the evidence until the trial is over.
exactly.
Like, I get your little fancy Oculus walk through the house virtual reality tour. I have an Oculus, and it's nothing like real life. You know what I mean?
This shit is. I've just never witnessed this in any case that I followed ever.
No,
Ever,
because
ever.
I mean, and like, I'm sorry, but yeah, you can put an Oculus on me. That's fine. But I'm not going to be able to stand in Dylan's room and have somebody go upstairs and see if they're making noise, if I can hear them. I don't know, like the size of the hallway where Bryan walked by her or whatever, whoever did it. You know what I mean? It's just
Correct.
crazy. It's craziness.
It is crazy. Exactly. And I was just saying to everybody what and I'm just going with what if there is OJ Simpson, there is Casey Anthony, there is people that have got off on things allegedly.
So I hadn't heard that before. Any thoughts on what Cluminati was saying, Gia?
Well, yeah, because I think we did say it before, or maybe I don't know if you and I said it not on a live stream, but to me, I'm a finance person. I get this, and of course, it's about money for the school because I don't know whoever donated it to the school. Of course, they want it torn down, and they want to capitalize on making more housing that isn't stigmatized, right? I mean, that's just and listen, I'm not trying to sound cold because I'm not, but it is business. And of course, if the house is sitting there, and I agree with everybody who says it should stand until the trial is over. I mean, that makes sense to me in many, many ways and on so many levels. However, that's not what they did. But the motivation behind the demolition and whether a developer owns this or that or whatever they're going to create, even if they just put up another house, this is money to the university, this is housing, and this is how universities act as a business, and that's how they're acting. And it seems really cold and awful. And the only thing I can't understand is, well, and I might understand, but I believe if the prosecution really wanted that house to stand, it would still be standing. I believe they would have a way to stop the demolition. I believe
Legally or just like they would have a
legal.
way
No,
influence.
legal. No, legal. They could have stopped it. There would have been a way. There would have been a course of action to stop that demolition. I know that.
Interesting.
But however, and this has been said through many channels, and including Steve Gonzalez, like they believe and they know, and we don't, what they have in evidence. That they believe there's so much evidence outside of the house at all that they can convict Bryan Kohberger. They're that confident. So that tells me that, all the speculation we're doing, which is great because this is how crimes are solved, and
And innocent people don't get sent to.
correct, yeah, and it's necessary to do, but they have so much that's sealed, so we can't see it, that they're so confident that they said, go ahead and tear down the house. No big deal. Everything we have that we feel that we can convict him with has nothing to do with the house. That's where they're coming from. And then, as whoever was saying on this, and what people say, it's true. Can you really hear the footprints if you're not in the house? And no, you can't. But the answer is the prosecution doesn't think you need any of that for them to be successful. They're that confident. And so if we were just going based on evidence that only we know about, I would say there's so much room for BK's innocence. But what tells me that he's probably, and I could give a ton, like I think there's all kinds of ways, like, oh, I can't, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. But if I knew everything that the prosecution had, I might be telling a different story. So, and these people, this is what they do. They're that confident. I've never seen a case where the prosecution is so confident, and they're so confident that this trial is going to be incredible. This trial is we're going to be like a jaw dropping all the way along, and like, holy smokes, right? We're just not privy to any of that right now. If that makes sense. I'm just kind of,
It's the only way we can quantify this, because to me, this seems like this is a W for the defense in every way, shape, or form.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think someone put up and said, who paid for the demolition?
Yeah, it was Pia.
Probably the university, because they're the ones that are, they own the land, and they're
That Scott guy's a developer. So I don't know if there was an investment made either, but it's none of our business really. And it's not illegal. It's just.
Well, I mean, I get her curiosity. I would think either the university. Well, I'm sorry. What? Oh, I think either the university paid for it, or maybe the developer made a deal with the university to say, hey, let's put these properties together and we'll build one bit. Who knows? I mean, that's speculation too. But it would be the university because they own the land.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't know.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is Like, I guess we just all have to take a deep breath and be in the present moment because it's gone now and we're moving forward. And that's it. That's it. Now we move forward with how we
Yeah.
operate without the house. And,
Yep.
and
You know,
there's-
and well done for you. You were right on it today. I wasn't. I popped onto YouTube. I was like so excited to see that you were actually had the live demolition because I was like, oh wow. I was thinking for some reason, and I don't know why, that the demolition was going to be happening later. I felt like it was happening a little before anyone anticipated, but you were right on that and streamed that live, and I thought that was terrific.
Thank you so much, Gia. See, I actually was under the same impression too. And I was under the impression the demolition would be going on during this live stream.
Yes.
And then
Yep.
when I came on and I saw other people who had live streams scheduled for around noon. And then when I came on in the morning, I noticed some of the larger creators in the true crime community had 9 a.m., 9:45 and 10 a.m. live streams scheduled. And sure enough, right at 10 a.m. they had already ripped into the house by the time we pulled up the coverage. It was after covering this case and being so involved, it was really surreal to watch.
Yes, actually was. Because you know what I found, and not to go off on a tangent, but it was really surprising to me because with all the things that I saw and all of the people who were really interested and were signing the petition and really trying to have our voices heard, it was kind of disconcerting a little that seemed to just be completely ignored and went by the wayside. And you know, but we should always have a voice. But I was surprised not more attention was given to that, and that the university just did what they wanted to and tore it down. I don't know.
So I heard in T-Rev's live stream that he collected over 8,000 signatures, and
Yeah.
that's incredible for just a small creator. And he also said that live stream was featured on Fox News as well, so it did reach a lot of people, and a lot of people cared. And then also there's that joint statement you and I had. We looked at it over Christmas. We haven't showed it on the channel, but there was a joint statement saying from the Kernodle/Gonzalez family stating how they didn't want this
Yes.
house brought down. And I think what's more disturbing to me is just the way that you feel that these victims' families have been handled, because typically I was always under the impression that in situations like this, there was somebody who had, the families almost had a handler or somebody who would help guide them through the process because it was so overwhelming. And it just doesn't seem like they have any communication. I don't think I'm saying anything groundbreaking. I've heard News Nation ask that question, and none of their lawyers that were contacted when they made a decision on this. It seems so insensitive.
It seems insensitive, and it seemed really fast. I don't know. It just seemed, you know. Thank you, Strange Suspicion.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see you at 4:20 for your premiere. So she'll be having a live chat during the video premiere.
Excellent. Yeah.
She does on Mondays and Thursdays. And so our next segment, we're going to talk about some current events going on with the case, unless there was some more you wanted to add on Demolition or anyone else in the live chat.
I don't know. Were we going to show Joey's?
Oh, well, yeah, let's show a clip.
I think that was interesting. His little 1 minute clip there, that might be a good time for it.
I totally agree. Let's just share screen and go here. So this is my husband, and he is a general contractor. He had a few words about this before he left for work this morning.
Yeah.
Today is the day that the house is supposed to come down. Something I do for a living. First thing they have to do is go in, disconnect the gas. If there's natural gas, they have to disconnect the electric and the plumbing. The plumbing should have already been shut off, else it would have been frozen. And then they take an excavator and they smash the shit out of that house. They put it in 5 or 6 dumpsters probably, and it's done. It'll be done in like 4 hours if I was doing this.
Mhm.
And it's the final cleanup the next day, grading it out and stuff. But that house will be gone in 4 hours if they decide to take it down. Which it is 7 o'clock Thursday morning, and I highly doubt this will happen today. Peace.
None of us thought it was going to happen.
That's it. I didn't think so either. I mean, you know, when and you know, this is my brother, right? Too. Your husband. This is what he does for he's absolutely right, and he was right. It's like the demolition. It's going to take place, but and someone said it was very emotional. It is emotional. It just seems wrong. There's just, you know what, in the pit of my stomach, it just feels wrong that it got done, and it is about money. It's completely about money, and that's sad to me. And like I always go back to, because my son's 20, you know, he's in college, and I so relate to this whole, you know, almost as like a mom, and I'm like, as a mom, I would be like, this is incredulous that anybody wants to destroy something that may have potential value. It may not, but you don't know. And it's the same thing. Like, you can't unring a bell, right? Like, so once it's torn down, that's it. And it's gone. And so someone put up, it was very emotional. Yeah, that's emotional on so many levels. It really is. Yeah, Viv Keenan. I agree. You know,
And that was reverberated quite a bit in the live stream today. It was very emotional. It was not just in my live stream, T Rev's live stream.
well, yeah.
The woman who called up in tears. So,
Mhm.
But
Anyway, but I move on after that. But I really like that little clip with, I just felt like with Joey, you know, saying this is how it's done, this is how quickly it's going to be over, and it just really shines the light on the fact that, like, this house has been, you know, the point of content. It's been the whole focus, a lot of the focus through all of this. And how can you just demolish it in less than 4 hours? It doesn't make sense, other than from purely a monetary standpoint on behalf of the university, who's looking to have more housing.
yeah.
Anyway,
I'm glad we covered it today. I'm glad we're talking about it, and it's documented now. It's part of history. This, you know, we've made a podcast, and we're glad that well, I'm just glad we were able to catch it live and make it part of this this
me too.
podcast we're doing, because I do think it's important, and I think that it's just very, aside from being important, it's an interesting part of this case that I think belongs there. So, and then, putting the demolition aside, the next subject we wanted to move to was current events in the case. And we had a couple to talk about today, but I think we really want to focus our time on one of the surviving roommates. Now, we don't often talk about things that aren't in the public sphere of knowledge, because we're not trying to, we're not going to walk the line of, we're not going to walk certain lines when it comes to people who are in private positions. There are public people and there are private people. But when it comes to somebody whose name is in these court documents that we're covering, we do have to cover that. That's part of the case. And we're going to talk about Bethany, this BF, the surviving roommate today. And we have 2 sound bites. And then I actually have I would like to talk about a video that was taken down by Harsh Reality, which I believe I'm going to tie into these 2 sound bites. So we're going to start with Christina Randall. We love Christina, and I love when we find some of her work, which we can feature on this channel, because she just is such a good researcher and presenter. So let me get Christina up here. So we're going to listen her. It's going to be a total of about 5 minutes. We're going to be listening to Christina as she talks about so she's going to be explaining some of the paperwork, when Bethany was asked.
So Bryan's defense is saying that one of the roommates has key information that could clear Bryan of all of this stuff. What? Before we get into today's video, I do want to let you guys know that this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. That has come out is on one of the surviving roommates. So we all know there was a total of 6 people in the Idaho house, right? 2 of them survived. One was on the first floor. The other one was Dylan, who was on the second floor where Ethan and Xana were. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say the other roommate's name because it is literally all over. It's in all these media outlets and everything. And the court has a gag order, but I mean, their faces are out, their pictures are out, and all this stuff at this point. So this is Bethany. So Bethany and Dylan were the surviving roommates. This preliminary hearing that is coming up on June 26th, Bryan Kohberger's defense team, okay, are wanting to call her, Bethany, as a witness for Bryan's defense. Now get this. They're saying that she said something or has said stuff in her many interviews that could basically exonerate Bryan. What could she have said? Let me just read this part of an article for you guys just so y'all can hear it like this too. One of the 2 housemates who survived the brutal slaying that claimed the lives of the 4 University of Idaho students is fighting a subpoena that would force her to testify as part of murder suspect Bryan Kohberger's defense. Bethany, 21, filed a motion to dismiss a subpoena Bryan Kohberger's attorneys filed to the district court in the state that she lives in. Bryan Kohberger's attorneys argue that the housemate's testimony is key to the trial and could clear the murder charges levied against their client, Bryan. What? And it is in quote, Bethany has information material to the charges against Mr. Kohberger. Portions of information that Mrs. Funk has is exculpatory to the defendant. Bethany's information is unique to her experience and cannot be provided by another witness. What did she say or see or saw or heard that the defense would be fighting to have her testify as a defense witness for Bryan and saying that her information is unique? Y'all, my mind is going like this. Now, I'm just going to start telling you some of the ideas that I have. This is literally so unprofessional. This is just me, okay? This is just ideas that I have, and we'll find out later, okay? If I was right, and I want y'all to tell me down below what y'all think. The things that I'm wondering, ever since we found out that Bryan's phone pinged near that house so many times, I thought, somebody is going to be a witness that says they invited him in that house at some point. And I just wonder if that's going to be it, or he's going to say he door dashed or something, because he's going to have some sort of reason why his phone pinged by that house so often, like he was stalking them or one of them. And I wonder if this Bethany knew him in a way, or what is she going to say? Is she going to say that, Dylan was on substances, hardcore substances that night, and she knew that a way they can say, oh, what she saw wasn't what I don't know. What could Bethany say that could basically clear him of these charges with his DNA on the doggone knife sheath, with the phone pinging, with the messages in his phone where he was messaging one of the girls over and over again, with him having photos of the girls, and it's come out that he had an ID card in his possession that could be traced back to one of the victims? What could Bethany say other than he was allowed in the house? I don't know, guys. Like that has got me sent. They didn't just say that they needed her as a witness for an important part of the case. They said that her information could clear him of these charges. How? That's got me stumped, y'all. I want to know. What do you guys think? Is this shocking? What information could she have said that could clear him of these charges? Let me know what you guys think down below.
And of course, I know this is an old video, but this is current information we're going over now. I'm going to show a News Nation clip now, and then we'll get to harsh reality and some of the stuff he redacted, which is important, I think, to this case. So let's get the News Nation clip up here. Ashley Banfield. This is only a minute and a half.
A source close to the victims' families has told me that Bethany never, ever emerged from the basement room. Like, she never came upstairs. She left the home and was outside in the chaos in the front of the house, but never did go to that second floor, never did see the carnage. She wasn't part of the discovery of the bodies. She was the only one living in the basement at that point. Dylan, the other surviving roommate, you well know now, was on the second floor, had the room across from the kitchen, opened the door, peeked out and saw who she says looked like Bryan Kohberger with the bushy eyebrows, saw that male all clad in black with a black mask walking out. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
All right, and we're going to stop there. And so we're going to talk about the redacted information. Do you any thoughts coming to you before I pull up Harsha's clip that you wanted to talk about at all at the moment?
No, I had a thought on the first clip. Oh, the only thing I would say, and that we know a little bit more now, like, is when people say ping, that cell tower is a 27-mile radius. He could have been anywhere. So, like, they're saying he was the ping was that he was near the home. Well, near the home within 27 miles. That saying near the home is accurate because he pinged off a tower, that the only tower that you would hit if you were in the vicinity, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean, those pings don't necessarily mean he was anywhere near 1122 Kings Road. He could have been in a 27-mile radius. So that needs to be kept in mind. And that goes back to what I was saying. If we were only going on the evidence that we know, and that is something we know, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be anything real telling to me. That's why I know when they say we have so much more evidence, like, that's probably even meaningless, right? But so it's the pings don't tell a story at all, other than he was within 27 miles, which he would be anyway.
Yeah.
He lived within 27 miles.
Alone, they tell nothing. Maybe the direction he was going.
Correct.
But
Yeah. That's all I have to say about those two clips. But
I hear different things about the casting system, but that's really important to keep in mind. And so lastly, in this little, add him to the screen. Lastly, while we're talking about what's going on with Bethany, I want to bring up harsh reality. Oops, there we go. So as a creator, what happened to him? Hello. There, we'll pause him there. So I certainly don't want to get into any of the drama that's been going on, with his channel, but I do want to bring up something that happened in the midst of it, because I was watching. I am a creator here on YouTube, and I heard the videos and I heard all the stuff that was going on. One of the things that was mentioned in this video that I'm showing, Steve reached back out, Idaho 4, if you want to check it out. He mentions that he took down 2 videos. Okay. Now, in these 2 videos that Harsh took down, one of those videos, I clearly remember him saying that Steve told them that Bethany lawyered up before she spoke to the police. So why is that important? Is I've read over the affidavit, or what is mentioned by about Richard Batanti in this court paperwork, and what it sounds like is that she probably gave an official statement via her lawyer. So she didn't. I don't necessarily know if she sat down with the cops and gave this statement, but it sounds like she gave one statement, and that Richard Batanti was a private investigator doing work, talking to the people around there, and he found something else different than what was in that statement. And that's what they're calling her back for. And another thing that my husband brought up in 2 videos ago was he was saying that that The affidavit somewhat reads like she might have some sort of pending charge in that state, why she might not want to come back, and that they're saying they won't arrest her if she does.
Okay.
And that brought me back to the beginning of this case. I vividly remember on multiple occasions the Moscow, Idaho police saying in those first days and weeks, give us your data, give us your pictures. We're not trying to bust you. You're not going to get in trouble. If you were doing something illicit drugs, we don't care. We want to catch the quadruple murderer.
Yeah,
We don't
I
care.
remember them.
So I just want to put the brakes on anyone and just remind them of that, is that we made a promise to these young people that if they showed us their data and they talked and they were open, we weren't going to charge them if they were doing something illicit with drugs. And I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't. I just want to remind people that was the deal. That was the deal that the cops put out there. Show us and we won't charge you. So it's, so that came to my mind when my husband made that video the other day. And
Yeah, and I agree with you, Kiki, because it's called immunity. It's like you're trading us something which information that is extremely important in lieu of us going after you for something like a silly, I'm not silly, right? You shouldn't break the law, but at the same time, to your point, they specifically said, look, we're going to overlook anything that may be misdemeanor or whatever, if you were doing drugs or this and that, we're going to overlook that in light of all of this evidence that you might be providing us to help solve a crime of the unaliving of 4 people. And I think that's fair. I mean, that's called immunity. It happens all the time. But to your point, let's hope that they mean it and they don't go back on that. And if anyone comes forward, that they get to have that promise of immunity.
Yeah. And I mean, the only thing I can think of, and I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody and the research people are doing, but one of the reasons why this could explain why people are kind of being quiet, why people aren't defending themselves to some of these charges, is because they know, I mean,
sure.
I do feel that there was something else going on. Unless there was something we don't know about, someone has suggested in my comments that maybe they were setting that up to see if someone returned in those hours. Whatever the reason was for that 8-hour time gap, if there was a second crime that they were covering up, I just also, again, just want to bring up that we all heard the police say that publicly over the news. Yes. It's documented. We aren't going to go after you if there was something going on. And maybe if they're not going to go after them, they shouldn't be publicly stating that. Or if it's going to come out, let it come out in trial. And then we can all sort through it then. But I don't think that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. No, but you're kind of spot on here, and I think that is exactly the reason that I think there's a lot more these kids know, including the fraternity guys and anyone who visited that house. I believe there's a lot more information that they're afraid to come forward with, and I don't blame them, because to your point, like they don't want to like incriminate themselves in something else. And they might have to say, while I was doing this, which I shouldn't have been doing, I noticed this. But it's like, I'm not going to say anything either if I think like I'm going to go down for something, right? So if they could be really assured that, look, no matter what you were doing at the time, if you just come to us and you give us the information that you have, helpful or not, we're not looking that way. You're not going to be, brought up.
And I also, I've heard you say this before, and I don't know if I've ever said it on the channel, but when that video came out from Harsh and he took it down and he suggested that Bethany lawyered up before she spoke with police, I'm just going to say that if any of us are ever in a situation and we have the means to afford an attorney, that's what you should always do. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what that's the advice I'd give to anyone I loved if they were involved in this. Lawyer up if you can afford it. Yeah. It's like expensive. It's expensive, but if you can afford it.
Yeah. But it has not, like, I think what you're saying is someone who lawyers up, it has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. It's about protecting themselves, because the judicial system is, it's not, look, it's as good as the people that run it. And there are a lot of mistakes that happen in the judicial system, and most people get into trouble because they don't have a lawyer and they say things that get twisted and used against them and all of this or that. So it's very prudent that if you're in any kind of criminal situation like this, even though she's not being accused, is that you get a lawyer and you have a lawyer to protect you and to explain to you your rights and when you should speak and when you shouldn't. You're absolutely right. And it doesn't have anything. I don't think it means because she has a lawyer that she has any kind of guilt or anything. It's just she's doing the right thing.
Like, I was watching Crime Circus the other day. I was watching one of his interrogations, and the person was guilty of what they had done, but they were being interrogated, and the person sitting there answering questions, like unaware that they're under arrest, like that they weren't there to answer questions, and then they just sit there like
They don't know. Yeah.
self-ratting, and like they had no idea, and it was just, it's, in fact, it wasn't just one time I've seen that. I've seen it several times in interrogation where they knew that they were there to put the cuffs on them. They weren't leaving, but they just, so you never know. So
Yeah, people don't know that most of the time you could get up and leave anytime you want, but they don't tell you that when you're being interrogated or you come in to talk, right? You don't even say, "Oh, I need a lawyer." Okay, that just means they can't ask you any more questions, even though a lot of times they do. But you have the right at any time to say, unless I'm under arrest, I would like to leave," and you can. But they don't make you aware of that because they're hoping you just sit there and you talk and you talk and you talk. And, there's some people who sit there for 15, 16 hours without the benefit of anything to drink or eat, and they're sweating it out. And this is how false confessions are obtained, and the people really didn't do anything. To me, it's more of like that's law enforcement trying to like tie up a case and be done with it, not really find out what really happened. My opinion.
yeah, so I guess that's pretty much all I could find for new kind of reportable things on Bethany. If you have something else you'd like us to discuss or about Bethany, or if we've missed something that you feel we need to touch base on, just leave a comment below and we'll cover it. Again, we're only here to really talk about the people who are publicly involved in the case, but BF is one of them. And we can talk about the information because she has had, there's documents in this court specifically pertaining to her. So, and in this court docket specifically.
Yeah. And I think Christina's point is like, there is something there. There is something that the prosecution or the defense feels that she knows that could clear him. And I will find that out when the trial happens. Right. But they seem very adamant about that she's got information. And I know that like that whole thing was a little old, right? And they were trying to extradite her back or whatever the word is to Idaho to be interviewed. They did end up going to Nevada to interview her because that's where she lives. Right. So they did get information from her. Of course.
This is really good you're bringing that up because if it was exculpatory and if it could clear Bryan, it has been reviewed by Judge.
Yeah, they've gone out and interviewed her. It's in there, right? But obviously you don't get cleared until there's a trial. Yeah. So
if they found something exculpatory, though, could they potentially have the case thrown out if it proves his innocence?
If the prosecution was so convinced that it destroyed their case, they could drop the charges. Sure. If it led them in a new direction. Yeah. I mean, the prosecution isn't in this just for, they really believe he did it. They believe they've got. So if the defense showed them something to prove all of their case and they went, okay, that's what we were resting on. That's what we were sure of. That's what we thought would prove our case. But now we know that's not true. They're not going to waste taxpayer money to continue to try to like nail this guy if they're convinced that he's innocent.
Well, I would imagine just his defense is incredible. Not just the prosecution, but the defense is incredibly expensive, like taxpayer wise. I would think Ann Taylor is provided with the necessary means to protect a death penalty client. I would imagine she's allowed to spend the money to. I don't know how that works.
This
What
is
do you
giant. Okay, I was just
want me
looking
to
at it.
bring?
I think I mean, gee, I think you're right. There's people who know stuff that they definitely don't want exposed about them possibly bringing a stain. It's going to come out. Correct. Yeah, it's all going to come out at the trial. But yeah, we're going to be amazed at what we don't know.
Yeah, we know what you meant.
Don't worry, I know it.
What you meant. Yeah, what a day. What a kind of emotional day for everybody who's been so involved in this case. And
It's kind of like seeing the house come down is like ending a chapter. It I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't sit right with me in the pit of my stomach. I don't know. I mean, in a way, I get it. Like it's a memory for people. It's a it's there to prompt thinking like this horrific tragedy happened. But at the same time, with that being said, yes, of course, it should be at some point demolished, and now it is, right? But I think I think it would have been best practice to keep it up, and yeah, I'm shocked that it happened as a year isn't fast, right? But pretty fast in the scheme of things, considering we don't even have a trial date yet.
I feel like we didn't even know about it coming down until a week. I mean, the exact date of the 28th. I would have to look when T-Rev started that petition, but I believe it was only a couple weeks before we presented it.
Yeah.
So it happened so fast. Yeah.
Right. Like Miss Smith said, to me, it's like burning the book before reading the ending. Yeah, you can't, burning the one copy of a book without reading the ending, so no one's ever gonna know, right? Like, it's not like you can go get another copy and see it. Like, yes, we recreated it digitally, but I think that was kind of an expense that didn't need to happen. It would have been cheaper to just keep the house up and have the real thing.
And like people keep saying Oculus, for those who don't know what they're talking about virtual reality glasses. So if anyone's put them on before, yes, they are pretty impressive, but they're not the same as real life. You know it the first time you take a step and feel like you're stepping through the floor. It's a different feeling. I'm not saying it's not gonna do.
Not tangible. It's not tangible with the Oculus. Like I mean, I hate to say it, I'm old, right? So my kids have it, and I put it on, and it makes me like it's crazy, but it feels real, and you're like swatting at things, but as you swat, you don't really hit them, right? So as you're imagining a footstep, you're not really hearing it. It's not the same thing as really being there.
Never will be.
No. So anyway, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's done. It's down. It's a shame. I hope the prosecution is right and that they feel that they have enough evidence, like tons and tons of evidence, that they don't even need the house, because that's what they're saying.
Yeah. The families spoke up and said that on Ashley Banfield, and they said that they did not hear about it via their attorney, which they were expecting. They were expecting their attorney to be notified. And that's not
and it's wrong. I mean, I think they went about it as fast as they could and didn't tell anyone because they didn't want the backlash, and they knew that it would happen. They knew these petitions would take place. They knew it was the wrong thing to do, but they did it anyway. And,
Yeah. It'd be better if we could sit there and point and say, okay, yeah, they're taking the moral high ground doing this. I just can't see it. Like the only person who I could say kind of gave me some aspect of moral high ground was possibly Ethan Chapin's mother, believing that this is going to give their children more peace going to school. They do have 2 children who go to school there and attend a fraternity within visual distance of there. So they understand the relived trauma that kids are going through. But
well, that makes sense for her but for her, because she does have 2 children, that two of the remaining triplets that are still here and are still attending the university. And of course, as a mom, you go, I need to think about my children who are still here with me, and I don't want them being traumatized every time they look in that direction. So it would be better for me and my family and my kids that it's torn down. But objectively, from a perspective of someone, I'm preparing a case and I'm a prosecutor. Like, no, it's better the house stay up, just in case.
God, you don't want to say the word that comes to mind,
Yeah. Anyway,
thank you for dancing around and saying it like that. Gee, I appreciate it.
I learned from you.
Yeah. It's the YouTube dance.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. It did look like it was made of cardboard. It took my breath away ripping into Kaylee's.
Yeah. And like to Joey's point in his video, like he said, the moment it's gonna come down in moment, it's just gonna collapse and come down. It does when you demolish a house like that, when you excavate, it looks like it's made of cardboard. It's amazing, like we could even live in something like that, but that's just how it is. It just and remember he said that'll be down in less than 4 hours, like
down and dumpstered in
less than 4 hours. Yeah. If not before, right?
It's done so fast. I mean, I was live streaming for maybe an hour and a half, and it was only just started. Anyway, so Gia, is there something else you wanted me to bring up, or any other sound bites you wanted me to show the folks for our weekly update on the podcast?
No, I mean, I think that's good. I think we probably kept people long enough, and I think we'll try to, I love what you did today when you realized that the house was being demolished well before we thought it was, and you got right on and were able to show that for the viewers. That was terrific. And, maybe in the future we could maybe do come live when we have breaking news.
Yeah. We'll try to make a commitment for that. And so we're we'll like to make that commitment to you guys that when we do things breaking, we're gonna come on and share them to you. And we're not going to give anything away because we want it to be unique when we get on, but we have some ideas for our next live stream. And it's going to be really exciting, something different that we haven't seen on any other channel. So stay tuned, and it'll probably be next week unless we have time. Maybe we'll get another one in this weekend. So we love you guys so much. We appreciate you stayed. We want to know what you think at the bottom. We read every comment. I'm telling you, we don't just read them. We take pictures of them. We learn from them. We research off of them. So everything you say is so valuable to us. Please let us know what you think below. Other than that, I hope you have a great day. Peace. And if we don't see you till next week, Happy New Year. May you have a blessed one.